A question that I'm regularly asked is, am I confident that Scrum Masters can create and build the value in the organizations in the way that the co-creators of Scrum intended? Why or why not? I think they can. I think you can. What you need is to really get into it. So what's your starting point? I think you need to have been in a team and delivered something. I think you cannot be an effective Scrum Master if your learning or your background is entirely theoretical and abstract. You need to get your fingers dirty and be in a team that have delivered something. Now, it doesn't have to be in a domain that Scrum came from. So I'm not saying you have to be a software engineer or worked in a team doing that. Any team doing anything. If you've worked with a group of people to get something finished, you understand what it means to get to done. Now, building on that with appropriate support, we need you to then understand the principles. Like, how does the Scrum values build into empiricism? So the Scrum values build trust. Trust enables empiricism. Empiricism is the ability for transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Now, if you can do the TIA quickly enough, you're agile. Awesome. Do you have to do Scrum? No. Is it a good starting point? I'm fond of it, but that's because it puts enough guardrails in to help people who are really struggling with this stuff. Should you know other stuff? Sure, you should. You should be thinking about product ownership. You should be thinking about managing risk, working in bets. You should be able to read a balance sheet. You should be able to flick through all the stances, the choices that Stephanie and I talked about in our book. When to act, when to not, when to be quiet, when to speak up. How do you coach people and consult with people to use Scrum better in such a way that it doesn't make you sound like the Scrum police? How do you just interact with people? How do you coach? How do you facilitate? How do you teach? How do you talk to leadership? How do you measure it? So if you're an effective Scrum Master, how do you measure that output? And this is where we should be seeing teams get better at their process. We should see done improve. We should see cycle times drop. Being able to demonstrate that return on your investment, you should be returning a tenfold investment on your salary or your contract rate. So whatever it is, you should be a 10 by force multiplier for the org. Now, that also means that you should be comfortable speaking to management, speaking to leadership, going after organizational challenges. That will require a blend of training, coaching, consulting, reading, personal development, all of that stuff. That's on you. But I definitely think an effective Scrum Master is a real game changer for an organization. And the number of times I've been working with organizations trying to get better, and they thought, if only we had a Scrum Master. So part of my exit criteria for working with an organization is, well, who do I transition? Who do I manage the change? Who do I hand over to? So when myself or my team leave, who's going to keep asking the tricky questions? Who's going to continue guiding the continuous improvement process? Whether they're called a Scrum Master or not, don't care. But how are we sustaining this feedback culture within your org? Scrum Masters are game changers, regardless of what you call them. How can you develop your game, your skills?